What if I told you that one of the most disgusting things ever invented might also have saved your life? Bloodletting, leeches, and moldy bread, these are the insane ways that people in the past treated illnesses. Surprisingly, some of them actually worked. So let's find out how the sick were treated with leeches and why it worked. So bloodletting is exactly what it sounds like, the practice of letting blood out of a person to cure their illness. But why would people do this? Well, bloodletting has been around for thousands of years, and it was used all over the world by many different cultures. But how did they do it? Bloodletting could be done in many different ways, but two of the most common methods were leeching and scarification. Leeching is exactly what you think it is. You stick leeches onto the area where you want to draw blood from, and then the leeches will suck the blood out. For extra fun, the leeches would often be placed on top of a moldy piece of bread, which, as you'll soon see, has its own special disgusting trick. Scarification, on the other hand, involved making incisions or scars into the skin to allow the blood to flow out. This could be done with a sharp instrument such as a knife or needle, but the process was also sometimes farmed out to insects or even animals like cats. The idea behind bloodletting was that by removing some of the patient's blood, you would get rid of the bad stuff that was causing their illness. What was that bad stuff, you ask? Well, it could be anything from an imbalance of the four humors to evil spirits. In medieval Europe, it was commonly believed that a sick person's blood was filled with bad humors, which were basically just imbalances of the four elements that make up the body: water, air, earth, and fire. So, by removing some of their blood, doctors would restore the balance and cure the patient. Of course, this wasn't always the case. Sometimes the bloodletting would weaken the patient so much that they would die. And when that happened, doctors would just chalk it up to the fact that there was too much bad humor in the person to begin with, and that they had just needed more blood removed. This is also not taking into account the risk of infection from the leech bites or the cuts made during scarification. But back then, people seemed to think that getting an infection was just a part of being sick. Now, while it may seem kind of crazy that people would intentionally put themselves at risk by having their blood sucked out by leeches, it does have a bit of a history of accidentally working. See, leeches not only suck blood, they also release a special kind of saliva that keeps the blood from clotting, and that can be a good thing. One of the most common uses for leeches today is in the medical field. Doctors sometimes use leeches as a form of therapy for people who have had reconstructive surgery. The leeches help to keep the blood from clotting, and that helps to reduce swelling and improve blood flow to the area. There have even been cases where leeches have been used to save lives. In 2004, a woman in Australia had a leech applied to her leg to treat a blood clot. And in 2013, a man in Thailand had a leech applied to his arm to prevent an infection after a motorcycle accident. Now, these are obviously very specific situations, and using leeches as a form of medical treatment isn't exactly common. But it's still pretty amazing to think that something that has been around for thousands of years could still be used to save lives today. Now it turns out that moldy bread also has a special substance that can help keep blood from clotting. Back in the Middle Ages, it was believed that eating moldy bread could cure a number of different ailments, including eye disorders, kidney stones, and even cancer. While there is no evidence to support these claims, there are some studies that suggest that the mold found on old bread may have certain health benefits. One such study, published in the Journal of Nature Chemical Biology, found that a compound called penicillin, which is produced by the penicillium mold, can help to thin the blood and prevent clots from forming. So maybe there is some truth to the old wives' tale after all, but it's not just the mold on the bread that could have been helping people back then. The actual bread itself may have also played a role. See, bread is made from flour and water, and flour contains a protein called gluten. Gluten has been shown to have anti-clotting properties, so it could have been helping the blood stay thin and the clots from forming. There are tons of other crazy medical treatments that were used in the past, from lobotomies to trepanation, the process of drilling a hole into the skull. But I think you'd agree that bloodletting, leeches, and moldy bread might be some of the most disgusting ones yet. But who knows? Maybe there's something to the old ways of doing things. And maybe we should be using leeches and moldy bread as medicine a little bit more often. Speaking of old ways of doing things, why don't you go watch this video next? Or if you're not in the mood for that, how about this one? Hey, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.